So we are 15 minutes ahead of schedule. Look at us. We've decided, because we have a couple lightning talk people who are threading their talk amongst childcare and other meetings. We don't want to move them too much around. So we're going to bring our development team on the stage here, and you guys can ask us questions for 15 minutes. What a fun game. And I will, you can't really
Is there a point system? How does that work?
Yeah, is this like a pub quiz situation?
I don't know.
Cage match. Ugh. Well, no, we're on a team. We're on a team, Don. We're working together. This is a participation award.
Are we cameras?
You don't need cameras. We're not gonna foist that on everybody.
Laura's out there trying to whip the crowd into a frenzy.
That's right.
That's
So
just what we need.
we've got a few minutes at the end of our day here. What can we answer for you? What does the future hold? Brave and clearly dedicated people. Yeah, that's the words we're using, Pete. They didn't have a choice. We told them what to do. So Mike Conway has a question. He's asking, so you're saying it was aliens? That's is that Alan? Do you want to answer that?
That's definitely an Alan question.
It was likely alien.
Likely.
I think we can get a good discussion on between Alan and Mike about rendering the first replica. Is that really the representation logically of a data object?
Just whoever wins comes out of the database?
Whoever comes out of the database first?
That was something I ran in circles around when I was putting my talk together. I was like, what is this thing? What do you show?
That's right. So see if Mike wants to defend his honor about choices made.
The answer is yes, because otherwise you're revealing iRODS semantics, and that's entirely wrong, unless you're asking for it specifically. So I think the best thing to do is give what is probably a fairly reasonable answer for any normal use case.
And
well,
so
if one of them is out of date, then not all replicas are equal, I think, is probably where Alan is headed with that.
Yeah, but are you making a decision about, for example, whether to operate or not based on what you see in a client user interface, unless you are looking at it for with a level of intensity? Does that make sense? Otherwise, do not surprise the user and reveal internals of the iRODS logical model, because it's supposed to be a logical model.
Agreed.
You're breaking the illusion.
I guess it depends on how much of the underlying system metadata you want to expose, because up until a certain point, it's all going to be the same. But the rest of the table should be exposed.
It's like that eventual consistency kind of feeling thing. It's like, yeah, this is pretty reasonable,
Well, but you could have, I think the answer probably should be the first good replica.
That's kind of what we settled on. I think we ran into this problem with the file system API, because that's in the logical space. And then we had this concept of, I guess, is it checksumming, Corey? I forget which one we ran into.
Checksum. Yeah.
And we were like, okay, well, which one do we pick?
well, that's what I'm saying. If any of those columns can be differentiated, then I think you've gone too far and already broken the logical model, and have just gone down the rabbit hole of a replica rather than having a comprehensive view of all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do have another question. We have a question. How do I start/run the iRODS REST API?
It should be in the README.
Follow up. I don't see it in the documentation.
Well, that depends on your platform, like sudo service, iRODS client REST CPP restart.
Right.
Or, depending on your underlying Linux implementation. There are some thoughts on systemd as well.
There are some thoughts. Yeah, Marcus, I don't know if you heard, there were people disparaging systemd yesterday, and I know that is something that you don't take lightly.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, The way that we're doing our init scripts doesn't really transfer over cleanly to a systemd unit file, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth around that a little bit, and right now we're letting systemd wrap, the old school init script in the way that it kind of works. I know that Sanger has had opportunities looking for a good way to do that. And I think the one question that we had, is we haven't rolled it in yet, was around, between the user and the group that should launch a service. And I couldn't ever find a way to specify both. You had to specify just one thing, and then it became the user and the group. And it wasn't clear to me that there's a right answer for being able to configure that. I know you can pass the username for it to use, but not necessarily the group. But John Constable doesn't seem to be in the audience for me to let him rile up the Marcus. So move on to something else, I guess. So Alan has answered some of it there about the REST API. Yeah, so that's probably something that we can talk about tomorrow live as well too, because nobody's ever really stood that up except us at this point. So there's definitely some learning on both sides. We have a question from Radha at BMS. Radha, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Radha from BMS. First off, I will admit that I don't have a complete understanding of how Metalinks works, but I'm curious to know if there is a possibility that a simple configuration can help us search for a specific data object or a collection through Metalinks. That's my first question. And second question is like, can I search through the entire catalog for one keyword, and it gives me a possibility of all occurrences of that?
Yes.
Is it? Okay.
So the second question, if you've got an AVU, I mean, the search in Metalinks is something that's actively being worked on with a better solution so that we can rip it out and replace it with the work that Mike's been doing with the pluggable search and maybe the new next generation jQuery. But yeah, if you search for an attribute, I believe it'll give you all the things that match that attribute, or maybe it's attribute and value. And then the first question, I don't know that I know the answer to. What was the first question? Can you repeat it again?
What I meant to say is that something like I may have different kinds of data models, and I just want to just feed that to Metalinks, and it helps me search, something like that, like a configuration file where I can configure my data model, and
That's what the pluggable search in a way does. So the the little search plugins are related to a schema and like a search persona. So for example, here at NIEHS, we've got a search for projects that allows you to search like hypothesis and scientific justification and so forth. And then we've got another search plugin that searches samples and runs, so you can look for a prep kit and what sequencing technology was it, what reference genome, and so forth. And so each search allows you to target a specific set of attributes, if that makes sense. Because the search that's in Metalinks now is awful, because you can search AVU or you can search file properties. You can't search both. And so we basically just want to rip that out.
So what version is this available in now? The latest one?
You can do it now. You can use it now. We have it in production. The thing that's difficult is going to be indexing that data and getting that established and trying to align that with the standard indexing capabilities that the iRODS crew is building. Is that fair?
Yes. So right now, the pluggable search that Mike is talking about gets its results from an Elastic search, an Elastic stack. And we don't ship that right now. So getting iRODS indexed in a way that that pluggable search talks to is the part that we have not yet connected and done the full circle. But we are working to get the iRODS indexing plugin to populate the index in the same schema that that search plugin is looking for. And
You
once
can
Right,
also, it's not limited to Elasticsearch. That search
That's right.
plugin could loop back and use the next gen gen query or specific query at this point. And it's mostly about taking like simple user text gestures and turning them into queries underneath is the notion. So you could have, for your data model and your ABUs, create a search plugin that is using gen query or a specific query underneath and shield the user from that is the notion.
Right. So Radha, we're close, but we're not there yet. We can't stand it up for you today because we don't have all the pieces, but we're close.
That's interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you. That helps.
All right, who's going to raise their hand? Who's going to tell a joke? Nobody's going to tell a joke. All right, we do not necessarily have to fill 5 more minutes with silence. We can move on to do magic tricks instead. Yeah. I think we've got a couple more questions coming in. People are typing. Maybe 1 more question, 2 more questions, and we'll be about at 2:30. So this is from Mustafa again at KU Leuven, does the 428 server have any microservices that will be called by the rule engine to copy all contents of one collection to another together with all the attached metadata? So this is an ICP recursive with metadata. And I think the answer is no. We generally do not copy metadata when we copy data objects. Is that a true statement for all parties involved?
Sounds true to me.
Yeah, so
But you can. But we
go,
don't.
go
I mean,
on.
all of the tools are there.
Right.
Yeah, I think we have a request for, we've certainly heard it with, cross-zone copies, right?
Mhm.
An ICP to a different zone, a federated zone, and people want the metadata to travel with them. But just as importantly, we hear from people that we definitely do not want the metadata to go somewhere else. So you definitely don't want to leak that information if that is not your, if you didn't want it to move, you really don't want it to move. Simona at Groningen says, we have implemented a rule that does that. Oh, we're going to need a link. Who's got a link for that? Yeah, I don't think we've ever written that ourselves, in part because it sounds like it could be surprisingly dangerous to just kind of have that available and on all the time. Let's see, we have a hand. Oh, Andre had his hand up and then he ran away. Okay, very good. When is nice? This is Tony from the Peanut Gallery. When is 4.2.10 expected to be released, and will it support Ubuntu 20? Well, if there are no obvious immediate breaking bugs in 4.2.9, 4.2.10 will not be too terribly soon. We have not heard that we broke it yet. Alan is very excited about not hearing from any of you about 4.2.9 since he changed everything. In terms of Ubuntu 20, yeah, the plan is to get our head around the changes for systemd and make sure that we're kind of behaving. I think we've got it almost nailed. The goal is to have 20 available for the next release. Definitely, it'll be part of 4.3.
How's that ARM build coming?
I tried it a couple times. It used to work. I don't know if it's worked recently. Simona says that the rule that they've written is not yet open source, but you can contact her, and maybe if the ICP with metadata is interesting, then we can talk about how to get that in the public, perhaps. And then Pete is also saying that 4.2.11 is in planning. It's like, no, Pete, that's not happening yet. I'm not doing that. We don't know what the last release of 4.2 will be, but obviously we can't announce that until after 4.3 is out and well baked. And let's see, we've got one more. Now people are typing. We got 1 minute left. I submitted a proposal to have an iRODS namespaced repo for tomorrow's discussion. Very good. Okay, so perhaps we'll have some code for tomorrow from Katie Lubin. And the lightning talks are about ready to go. When do clients use the new API? When the clients do use a new API, what point is a discussion about refactoring clients away from the old school packing instructions a viable one? Yeah, so this is from Mike Conway. We don't have a good story yet, Mike. We have just now written our very first version ourselves, and we need to figure out how to hold it better and how to communicate that. Don't plan on leaving the old stuff soon. I think
so. The new API, which takes JSON packages, is implemented through a 4.x plugin adapter. And so we can send things to the, sorry, the dog's freaking out because it's raining. We can send, requests for the new API through that plugin adapter using the existing packing instructions, which is just a bytes buff. Now, the new iRODS CLI is speaking directly to the new API through that adapter right now. And when we get rid of the packing instructions, will basically be when we can effectively just, turn off the plugin adapter and send the JSON. So there is a plan for that. We don't have a timeline for that at this juncture, but we are learning using the new CLI and that adapter right now, but which will give us, backwards compatibility through federation back to 4.x.
Very good.